Hey everyone, welcome to our live stream and thank you for joining us on a Friday. My name is Vedankur Gupta and I'm from community team LottieFiles. So we are super excited today to be sharing about how to design awesome website with Fix using LottieFiles and Lottie animation. Joining us today is Christopher Derrell, who is the founder of Thread Software and he's our Lottie evangelist too. We hope you are ready for what's to come next. And I believe we have folks joining in across the globe. Please do give yourself a shout out on the live chat and tell us where you are joining in from and your Friday plans too. Lo- So let's see who all are joining from which place of the globe. Okay, for those who are joining our live stream for the first time, let me start by giving you a quick intro about LottieFiles. So LottieFile is a platform for testing, collaborating, and discovering animation for a community of designers and developers. The platform offers a variety of tools and features that aim to make the discovery, creation, and implementation of Lottie animations easier and more efficient. There are plenty of ways you can make full use of Lottie. These are some many use cases where you can use Lottie files. You can use them in your app, website, create a funky Telegram sticker, add them to your games, AR and VR, or even use them for your presentation and your digital ads too. There are over 130,000 plus companies that uses Lottie files to ship their animations. Some of them includes Apple, Google, Airbnb, and Disney. Our team runs various events across the globe covering topics for developers, designers, and marketers. So do check out our community page or simply search for hashtag Lottie community on any social media channels to find and connect with our fellow organizers and evangelists. Also dropping a link in the chat so that you can check our community page. And lastly, before we begin our session, sit back and enjoy this short intro video about Lottie files.
I've got a big fat drum, big fat drum. I've got a big fat drum, pounding so bad. I've got a big fat drum, big fat drum. I've got a big fat, big.
Listen. Yeah. Clap. You ready? Let's go.
That was awesome. So now let's welcome our speaker on stage for this session, founder of Thread Software and Lottie Evangelist, Christopher Derrell. Welcome. Hi, Christopher. How are you?
I'm doing well, Vidankar. How are you?
I'm good. So thank you for us joining on the that's morning for you in your country, like at 6 a.m. Early in the morning. So would you like to introduce yourself to our viewers?
Sure. So thanks again for that introduction. Thank you for describing. My name is Chris Derrell. I am a software developer and a software development manager. I lead a team of web developers, and I also do software development through my own company, Three. I love Lottie, and I'm looking forward to this talk today, as we look at how pretty much everyone can get started with Lottie animations on Wix. Wix is a tool that's around for the specific reason of building awesome websites, and Lottie is a tool that's around for building awesome animations. So, what better merger is there?
Awesome. So let's get started with this great session ahead. Christopher, over to you. Now stage is all yours.
All right. Thank you, Vidankar. All right, I see that we have some faithful persons like Anthony on the call. So I'm looking forward to just discussing with all of you how you can unleash. I feel like that's the best word that we can actually look at. How you can unleash Wix and Lottie animations together. So I am a Lottie evangelist. I've been using Lottie for, I guess, a relatively short time, probably about 2 or 3 years now. And my story is a little interesting because it never started on Wix. So let's look briefly at what we'll be looking at today, and then we're actually going to see how it actually works. And I'm looking forward to your questions, everyone on the call. So this is what we're going to touch today. I know many of you appreciate an agenda, so you know what we're actually going to touch on. And as it is Friday and Friday night for many of you, I'm looking forward to a very compact session where we cover a lot in a very short amount of time. Now, Vidanka introduced me really well. I have been doing software development since 2014. That's when I started out what I'd actually say is coding, not just for schoolwork, but actually developing. I started in Android development because I had a need that was unmet in my university for my club that I was a part of. And since then, I progressed from Android development to more desktop application development using Node.js. And then from there, I just had this feeling like I can't build anything for the web because, you know, the internet at some point is going to fail us when we need it the most. And then I changed my mind in 2017 and I moved into a web role where I led a web team and have been leading since. But my story didn't start when I started coding. It started way before that, from when I was younger, when I was a child, because I've been breaking things since 2000, breaking apart laptops and never putting them back together. And who knew that a skill like that would actually play into being a software developer? Because software developers, of course, we need to be able to build things, but the ability to tear things down and debug it comes into play just as much as before. Now, a little bit about me, what I'm actually passionate about. I love teaching, I love developing technology, and I love Jesus. That's the core of me. So anytime you see me, one of those three things is going to be coming out. Now, my passion, and I hope that you see it come through when we talk about Lottie today, is to see complex problems broken down into their parts, to help people access resources that they need, and really make people more productive using technology. Because if technology is not making us better, then what's the point? Now, I'm aware that many of you are joining this call as a fresh introduction, not just to Wix, but also to Lottie. So before we go into Wix and the more technical parts, I wanted to touch briefly on what it is that LottieFiles actually does. So LottieFiles is this community of awesome persons. And that awesome is very important. You'll see why they're awesome. But it's a community of awesome designers, developers, and persons who are really moving the motion and the motion design game forward. LottieFiles is different from Lottie, which is the format of the animation. LottieFiles itself is a company that handles making sure these animations are available to the public. So how do you use something from LottieFiles? We're going to see that in a live demo later. And I hope you're excited, I hope you're excited. I know you've seen live demos that take an hour on YouTube. This is not one of those. This is one of those that you're like, oh, wow, I can do this myself and I can do it today. Some of the benefits of using Lottie animations from LottieFiles are that they're blazing fast. In general, when you use a Lottie animation, you're already way above where you would be if you use a GIF or you use a PNG. That should say PNG. Because what's happening now is you're rendering a vector animation. You have something that's an SVG that's actually moving. And that's something that your browser is thanking you for, your website is thanking you for, because you're not loading a whole image all at once and then telling it to play over and over, which is what makes GIFs heavy or GIFs heavy. Instead, you have this wonderful Lottie player that's handling the animations for you. And because of that, your website is already faster. And of course, it scales. So your animation can scale way bigger without rasterizing and without seeing the little pixels because it's a blazing fast SVG animation. Next, another benefit is that customizable Lottie player. Now, the Lottie player makes it very easy for anyone who's doing their animation for the first time. So you found an animation you like and you want to put it in your website, in this case, or in your app, in your augmented reality application, in your ads. The Lottie player allows you to do amazing things like speed up your animation, slow it down, reverse it. I think you can add animations into the animation, like a bounce animation and how it finishes. And it gives you way more control over how your animation will play. Another great benefit is that LottieFiles makes it easy to get started. And this is what I was talking about when I say the community is awesome. LottieFiles has over 5,000 animations on the site, and thousands of those animations are actually free. What that means is if you're joining here today and you're like, what is LottieFiles? You now know that you have a free repository of animations that you can use in your different types of applications, especially your website. And you can get started very quickly. You don't even need to sign up. You just get into it. Now, for me, that's one of the biggest things that makes this amazing, because you have technology that is awesome, but there's a high barrier to entry. And so if you want to learn it, you have to pay first. But in this case, LottieFiles makes it really, really convenient for you to try out different animations to see which ones fit your application. Now, these are just 3 of the benefits. There are many more. There's the ability to convert an SVG logo into a LottieFile animation. There's the ability to change the colors in the animations or edit the animations live on the site. And all of this is for the journey and for the goal of you actually having an easier experience building your Lottie animation. Now, this is the descriptive part. But one of the better things, one of the nice things is that this is something you can integrate in many pieces of technology. Now, let me take a trip down memory lane now. I'm going to catch the bus right down memory lane. Because although I have building a Wix website here, my first interaction with Lottie wasn't with Wix. It was actually through WordPress, through the Elementor plugin many years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, when I was trying to help someone design a site. And then I started to scroll down the site and I saw a guy on a bicycle moving with the scroll wheel. I was like, hold up. So I scrolled back up and he scrolled backwards and he's wheeled backwards. I was like, no, this is amazing. Where did this come from? And that was my first take into what a Lottie animation was. So fast forward into 2021. I would have been using Lottie now on Wix for a little while. So I wrote a short article for Wix on how people could add Lottie animations to their website. And since then, I've been building with Lottie on Wix just to make it more interactive for the community on Wix. Because one thing that Wix has always lacked is dynamic animations that Lottie can provide. Now, if you're interested in building a Wix website, some of the things that you should know are that as a website builder, Wix gives you the freedom to design any kind of website. It actually doesn't matter what you need. Wix will give you the ability to build it. It's also a place where you can manage your entire brand or business online. So unlike just a website builder, Wix will give you the tools to manage your email marketing. You can manage your social media posting. You can manage your coupons. You can manage your e-commerce store. Anything that you need for your business, even your business email, you can manage through your Wix website. And Wix is one of those platforms that provides you with many templates to get started, just in case you don't know what you want. But if you all on the call are developers or designers or persons who love to sketch or create a wireframe or code, Wix is also perfect for you because you can start from scratch. So anytime you want to get started, you can also get started for free by going to wix.com and you'll be able to sign up. Now, I think that's a nice intro. But why don't we actually build something on Wix? Like, why don't we actually look and see what we can do for ourselves? Now, you know what they say, never do a live demo. And so I've gone ahead and ignored that advice, and we're going to do a live demo. So what we're going to do is build a short sign-in animation flow on a Wix website. So we're going to start by creating our new Wix website. There is a shortcut. And what it's going to do is create a brand new blank Wix website in a matter of seconds that we'll be able to edit. All right. So I think that for this demo, we are going to call it, let's give it a name of Crypto Exchange. Since Web3 is so hot right now, we will call it Crypto Exchange. Right? And what we want is whenever somebody comes onto the site and starts to sign in, then we want them to be able to see a Lottie animation so that they know something is happening. So we're going to give them a button. This button is going to say sign in. We'll give it some space. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we want them to actually have an animation. And so Wix has released very recently, just in the last 2 months, the Lottie animation plugin. So it's actually inside Wix now. So when we're ready to create an animation, we just go plus, embed, Lottie. And just like that, we have it on our site. And so if we wanted to preview how it would look when it's live, then we see already we have a loading animation that they've preloaded. We have our name and we have our button, of course. Now, let's say this is not the animation we want. I mean, it's a nice animation, but it's not necessarily the one that we're looking for. What we can then do is change the animation, change animation here, and Wix will actually take you directly to LottieFiles. So from here, you can search through the thousands of animations and find one you like. I think I like this one here from Chris Gannon. A very awesome animation. Chris Gannon, if you're on the call, beautiful animation. And so we're going to copy the animation URL. We don't need to change the color. We like it as is. And we're going to go back over to the Wix tab. We paste that URL here. And just like that, we have our Lottie animation in Wix. And so what happens now is you're in preview, and this is what you would see on the live site as well. And the animation is just running. Now, thus far, we've already added a Lottie animation to our Wix site, and that was in 4 minutes, right? So it really is easy. It really is very easy to get done. And everything that we've looked at so far is free. The Wix site is free, which is one of the great reasons you can get started with it. And the Lottie animation on LottieFiles is also free. If you wanted to publish this and share this URL with someone to look at, maybe a client, maybe a friend, then they can also get a free link to look at, and it would just have your name on it. So in this case, it would have my last name, Derrell Christopher.wixsite, and you can view the site on the web. So it's on the web now, and the animation is there. But we do want to do one more thing before we move from this section, because we don't want the animation to always be there. And that's where one of the other features of Wix, which is that you can customize it with code, comes into play. So let's turn on dev mode. I heard all the developers on the call say, yes, loving it. Now, dev mode is an exciting section of Wix, and frankly, it's really an unknown section of Wix that allows you to write custom JavaScript and Node.js on your website to install npm packages to really manage a lot more of your website's functionality. It allows you to have a lot more power and a lot more flexibility with your website. So what we want to do is make sure that our Lottie animation doesn't show on default. It only comes up when we click the button. So the first thing that we would do is collapse the animation. Let's move it over here. And once it's collapsed, we'll have to add an on-click handler to the button. So let's call this show Lottie. We give the event handler a name. And now that we have the name of the event, we can now change what it does. So in our case, we want to make the Lottie show. Expand. And so just like that, we would have just set an event handler on our button. And so when we go into preview now, our animation is not there. And when we click, then the animation starts to play. And there's more that we can do than this. The new Lottie embed from Wix actually allows you to play the animation via code. You can stop it via code. You can increase the speed or decrease the speed via code as well. So you have a lot more functionality that you can do with your website. Now, of course, this is a very simple example, but I hope you get the vision of what you can do, how easy it is to add a Lottie animation to your Wix website, and really how easy it is to build a Wix website as well. The goal here is that you see that anyone can get started. That's the beauty of where we are in terms of the technology sphere right now. Anyone can get started. The resources are also online for persons to really shine. Now, it doesn't stop there, because those same coding functionality areas that I showed you also give the ability to do advanced Lottie customizations. And this is something that we at Threed are actually working on. We're working on different pieces of code that will allow persons to have more control over their Lottie animation. And we're creating them for the Wix community so persons can implement them on their sites. So this is custom functionality that we would have developed in-house that we share with the community that builds on top of Wix's built-in functionality. So one example of that is our, let me get the tab up. So back to our example. One example is on another window, but that would be our scrolling Lottie. So let me just pull it up right here. So what we've created is a way for persons to actually use Lottie interactivity on Wix, because that's one thing Wix does not natively handle as yet. There's no way to manage scrolling via the built-in Lottie element that I just showed you. And so what we've created is a way that these animations here, these trees, are actually moving with the scroll wheel. So persons can implement this on their website as an easy way to manage Lottie interactivity. Another example shows that it doesn't just manage scrolling. We also have the ability to manage the cursor movement. So if we actually go to another websites, then we'll see that with another animation, and I do like this animation even more. You can actually control the tree. You shake it, and your mouse is moving over it. And this works on mobile as well. So it gives your mobile users a nice feeling of interactivity when they're swiping left and right on the tree. And of course, if you wanted to take this even further, you could chain these animations and have something drop out of the tree when they move the cursor enough. Right? And of course, I like this animation as well because, you know, the faster you scroll, the faster the feet move. Right? So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys build in this area as well. And this is just the start. We also have the ability to do our loading button, which uses Lottie animations to create a more interactive button. So you just saw us create a button that made another animation show, but what if we could get the animation inside the button itself? Well, through the ability to change this SVG and LottieFiles animations, we're able to also handle something like that. So what would happen is that when you click the send button, instead of it showing up somewhere else, it would actually change the animation that's in the button itself to a loading animation of your choice. And of course, you can set this via code as well. So this is just another way that you can use Lottie to enhance your website. One more example. I don't want to move too quickly because, this is exciting for me, but I have to keep the pace moving. But one more example would be the Lottie Interactive. This was an awesome library that I found from Sam Osborne. Right? He created a button using a custom element that also handles Lottie. And so I re-implemented it for Wix because there are just a couple things that you have to handle. But one of the things that you can do is have buttons that play Lottie animation on click, but then automatically handle the reverse. So instead of having text and the icon, the button is the icon. And you can click it and then leave it alone and it will auto change. And there are many different modes for how the animation starts for each of these buttons. So you can have freeze click where, let me see. Yeah, I think that's pretty much freeze click. Yeah. You can have it change on hover and you can have it also do morph and morph lock. Now, all of these are components that can be shared. They're components that we're creating to share, all of them for free, because we want the persons in the Wix community to have something to experiment with, and also the persons in the Lottie community to have a place to experiment on. So these are just 3 of the ones that we're working on right now. All right, so this is an area that I'm excited about because of what it means for web development. I personally see Wix being one of the ways that persons can get this out, but of course, it's not the only platform. But this means that when persons are creating more dynamic websites, they're able to make their designs much more distinct. Every time you add a different animation or you change the color on one layer on an animation, it becomes a new level to your website. It becomes a new part to your website that would not be seen on anybody else's website. And that's exciting to me. That means that your website is not a copycat. It means that it stands on its own and that it is distinct across the entire internet, across the millions and hundreds of millions of websites. And so that's one of the reasons that Thread is committed to building out these components, because it really gives the community more tools to make distinct websites. Right? So that actually brings me to the end of this presentation. As I said, this is something we're working on to share. Some of these are in progress. Some of them are at the tail end and are like immediately shareable. But the goal here is that you saw today that you could get started with a Wix website and with Lottie animations very quickly. You don't have to wait on an advanced designer. You don't have to wait on an advanced web developer. You can really get started. You can get 80% of the way there. And then when you need to do the final 20%, of course, that's the time when you can hire the After Effects designer from Lottie community. You can hire the web developer from the Wix partners community, but you can get started. You can get the vision down on paper and then only hire when you need someone to finish the job for you. But at the most of it, or I should say the most that I'm hoping that you got, is that through these last 30 minutes, you saw this is something I can do for myself. I can make a distinct website on my own. And so at that, I would invite Vedankar. If you have any questions or if the community has any questions, maybe we can go from there.
Okay. Thank you, Christopher, for this amazing session. I think our viewers must have noted down few points from this great session. And so this brings us to our Q&A session. We have few questions in the chat. Let's see. But before and if anyone has any question, drop your questions in a chat box. And in the meantime, we have a couple of questions from our registration. So let's get to that first. So, yeah. So yeah. So the first question is: do you plan on creating a Lottie building software?
Oh, that's a good question. So the what we're building is not a Lottie building software, so nothing like the SVG to Lottie editor or the JSON editor on LottieFiles. We think those are great as is. We're building software to allow you to implement it on your website. And one of the nice things I like about this question is that it's talking about software, and it didn't say, "Do you plan on creating a Lottie building website?" Which I like about this question, because what we're creating, those custom elements, you can actually introduce on any website, because custom elements are native HTML. So even though this was a Wix presentation, what we're building should be usable on any web platform, even straight HTML.
Okay. So let's have our
Vidanker, I
second
like your
question.
shirt.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, Christopher.
Yeah, I like your shirt.
Oh, thanks. Oh, yeah, we are wearing the same T-shirt. Lottie Files. Okay, so let's move on to our second question. So, how Lottie Files is helpful for our developers?
Yeah. So for developers, speaking from personal experience as well, one of the hardest things can be figuring out the user experience, figuring out how it is that we want persons to flow between the different screens, because many times our head goes straight to the functionality. We know that the sign-in needs to work. We know that the page needs to load in a certain amount of time. But the things in between, the micro interactions like coding the loading to show up or coding a custom background, those things aren't top of mind or the first things that we think about. And so LottieFiles is a repository, an awesome place where you can search through thousands of animations and look for something that matches your taste without spending too much time worrying about, will the color scheme match, or will I find the perfect animation. You have the ability to test, and if you don't like one, you can switch again. And LottieFiles really gives you a really helpful library of all these animations.
That's great. So, let's move to next question. What does it take for one to be a UX UI designer?
Oh, I like that. So I'll answer this because I actually asked the UX UI designer on my team this question. Because the question I had is, how do you train somebody else to become a UX UI designer as good as he was? And what he shared with me is that one of the things that a good UX UI designer does is they don't only look at UX UI design. They look at design overall. So they would be spending time reading magazines, looking at how magazines are laid out, like physical magazines, looking at things like newspapers, journals, online. They spend their time on Dribble, they spend their time on Behance, but they really try to get an understanding of why things are designed instead of not just how they're designed. So spending time looking through different designs, not just web design, but different types of design, is one thing that a good UI designer, UX UI designer must be doing. Another thing is that anyone who plans to lead in an area must read in an area. Let me say that again. Anyone who plans to lead in an area must be reading in an area. And so, one book that I can recommend that I actually have for myself is The Design of Everyday Things by, I think it's Andrew Norman. That's a great book for anyone who's going into UX UI design.
Okay. So I suppose our viewers will take notes about these books and they definitely go and buy or read these books. So and that comes to our next question: do Lottie files affect the speed of websites?
Yeah, that's a good question. They do, and in the positive, not in the negative. Implementing Lottie files using Lottie Player is actually a faster way to get animations done than GIFs. I think the Lottie website actually has a really great graphic that describes the difference, where it has an elephant for the size of the GIF that your website is putting on, and then a mouse for the size of the Lottie files animation that's playing. So that is one of the great things about Lottie. It's using vector animations, so SVG, scalable vector graphics. So it's already easy to resize, but more than that, the way it's being loaded is also much smaller. And one thing I'd add is that's the regular Lottie player. It's already much faster, but there are cases where you just need even smaller interactions or micro interactions, which is like when you click on the Twitter's heart icon and it just turns into a heart, or if you like a comment on Facebook and it does the big thumb up. There's an even smaller library called JLottie that the team at LottieFiles created. That's even better for that. That's something that you can also implement.
Okay, I think that was a great explanation about the Lottie files and the users for the website. I think that's what we are here for, making life easy for our users. Okay, so let's move to our next question. Do we have any question from the audience? Let's me check the live chat box. Okay, so Christopher, you can see if you can see a few questions in the chat box. There's one from Anthony. Is it's paid to use those features? I think he asked during the presentation. Maybe he was asking about the fix.
Okay, right. So no, for Wix, all of those. Oh, so Wix adding the Lottie files display, the player, that's free. Creating the Wix website is free. The only time that you need to pay for Wix is when you're ready to launch and you're connecting a domain to your website. So if you want to have ChristopherDerrell.com, then that's when you would pay for your Wix website. But up until that point, the coding, all those features that I showed you are free. One thing to note is things like the scrolling Lottie. Those are built using a feature on Wix, a special feature called a custom element. And while a custom element is a free feature, to actually use it on your live site, you need to have a domain connected. And that's actually a security requirement from Wix, because the custom element is so powerful. It has so much access to the DOM and access to NPM that Wix can't have it running on their domain at anything.wix.com. It has to be connected to your own domain to run. So because of that, even though the custom element and the scrolling Lottie are free, because we'd be giving them away for free, to actually use them on your website, you need to have a paid website with a domain connected.
Okay. I suppose Anthony got his answer for this particular question. Uh, Christopher, you can check the
Yeah,
live chat
I
box
see that.
if there's any question that you would like to answer. Yeah.
I see Anthony asked. I see Anthony asked how to add the Lottie animation scroll animation in a fixed screen like the Apple website. That is definitely doable. Wix has another platform called Editor X. So they have two builders. I showed you one of them. Editor X is very good at fixed scroll features, where you scroll down the page and there's a transition to another part of the animation or the design. And that would be the place to try out the Apple website type scrolling features. And you don't have to start from scratch on Editor X. You don't have to start with a blank website. There is an area where you can actually see templates like the Apple website. Let me know if that answers your question. If not, I'll clarify again. I see Maxudur asked a question as well. Will the scrolling effect work on React? Yes, it will. So the LottieFiles, GitHub repo for Lottie interactivity actually has the ability to manage the scrolling in React. So you can actually create it directly through React. They have a React plugin, you could call it, where you can implement it. And that guide is actually on the GitHub page for how you can do it in React. I think they handle Vue as well and native HTML.
Okay. Okay. Uh, I think there are no more questions in the chat box. So that brings us to the end of the Q&A segment. So I would like to thank Christopher again for doing this live stream with us. But before you go, is there any final words or piece of advice you would like to share with everyone?
Yeah. All right. If I could leave you with something to remember, it is that regardless of your level of experience, you can get started. That's pretty much it. You can get started. Both Wix and LottieFiles have decided to give you a free way to get started, which is really a resource in your hand. Each of them has documentation on how you can use it, but they've both given you the ability to get started. And I mean, I even had a quote on the slide that was there, and it says that the secret to getting ahead is getting started. And I think that that's very apt. You have the ability to get as far as you can. If you need to add somebody else at that point, then that's good. Get started on your own. Create your first Wix website. You see that it doesn't take a lot of time, nor does it take any money. Try it out for yourself and see what fits.
That's awesome. I think we can take this as a Friday motivation code. So, like in India, we are already in the Friday Eve, and in rest part of the world, it's maybe start of Friday. So, let's thank you everyone, and now we'll have Christopher off stage, and we'll thanks Christopher again to joining this great session and taking through us on a on this perfect uh, presentation of Wix and using Lottie animation.
Thank you,
Okay,
Vidankar.
Christopher.
Looking forward to seeing your first Wix website next week.
Yeah, see you there. Bye, Christopher. Okay. So, and before you go, dear viewers, do stay connected with us via our social channels. You can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, GitHub, and even chat with us on Discord. Hope to see you there. Dropping our community link in the chat box as well. Lastly, and most importantly, we value your feedback. Feel free to scan this QR code, or uh, we are dropping the link in the chat box. You can go to our feedback and give us the feedback for this live stream. And if you're interested in joining our network of Lottie organizers across the globe and running events like this one today, fill up the same feedback form with the indication that you are interested in becoming a Lottie community organizer, and we'll be in touch with you. Lastly, one lucky winner will be chosen at random for some cool LottieFile swags. Isn't that awesome? So get your feedbacks in. And thank you everyone for joining today. I'm Vedankur on behalf of LottieFiles. See you at the next time.